entire thing this time. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday Notary Titans call, the TNT call for Tuesday, March 19th. My name is Bill Soroka. I'm the founder of NotaryCoach.com, and our co-hosts today are Mrs. Carol Ray of Notary to Pro. Carol, how are you today?
I'm feeling great. How are you?
I'm good. What are you excited about this week?
Oh, God. You really want to know the truth? I am so excited for Thursday morning when Bill and I get in the car and we take off for 4 days by ourselves with my office in tow.
We should probably clarify the
always
bills
with
here,
the
right?
office.
That's her husband, Bill, not me, Bill. We're not. Carol and I are not.
No. The other Bill in my life who's been with me for will be 56 years.
Yeah, he's got me beat. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Recreation and just decompressing is so important. That's why we work so hard, right? So I'm glad you're getting away.
Yep.
Our other co-host, Miss Laura
it.
Biewer. Hey, Laura, how are you? From CoachMeLaura.com.
You know what? It's a great morning. I'm making a lot of progress in a lot of small different areas, and they're coming together. So that's the exciting part, is when you start to see all the pieces you're working on and they start to produce something, it's an exciting time. So that's where I'm at right now. It was a great morning. My morning started at about 5 o'clock. And I've been just pulling things together before getting ready for this meeting. So I'm excited to be on with everybody.
Awesome. So glad that you're here. This is one of the highlights of my week for sure. As far as things I'm excited about, I am real excited about this coming Saturday. Laura, actually working with you. You're doing the Last Wills and Testaments Skill Builder on Saturday morning. It's open to everybody, completely free. You just have to register in advance for it. So if you haven't seen that in the email, I'll post it in the chat window. So if you're looking to build your general notary work and learn a little bit about Last Wills and Testament, Laura's going to lead us in a skill builder training. It's only about 20 to 30 minutes with a Q&A on Saturday morning. So I'll get you the details on that. The other thing I'm excited about, of course, is the Ron Summit. We had our second interview guest released last week, the organizer of the opposition to AB 199 in California. So that was interesting conversation. And I'm real excited to see where that's going. You can register for that too at notarycoach.com/RON or Ron. Okay, let's jump in. We got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. We've got some good questions. So I thought maybe what we do is we would just start with some of the questions. Some of them might actually help tie us right into our presentation today. And our presentation, I know, is a passion for the three of us, right? Laura, Carol, me, is how we maintain energy and sanity on busy days when you have multiple projects going on, and especially as mobile notaries and loan signing agents when you're on the road that long. So I know we've all been thinking about that. We've got our own individual strategies to share. That will come up in kind of the second half of today's call. Is that okay with you guys, Laura and Carol? Can we jump into questions? Or?
Absolutely.
Sure. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and just share our normal presentation. Oh, hold on, maybe. Slowly. Okay, cool. First question. When doing a loan signing, how do you handle all the journal entries? For example, as the notarizations come up, or do you do the journal entry at the end of the signing, or do you do it all at the beginning? Carol, would you like to start us off on this one?
Sure.
From a loan signing perspective?
Yeah. Of course, things have changed a lot in California in particular because of the fact that every single thing that you notarize has to be signed by the signers and noted in your journal. It's not like before where we used to list everything and then have them sign and do the fingerprints. But when I did it, and all the years we did it, I always prepared my journal the best I could if I had time. even before I got to the signers' homes, and listed all of the documents that I needed to list, and made sure that I had as much information as I could to put into my journal beforehand. I think it helps to not consume so much time. There's so many things to do when you're in a signing, and I think to make it more convenient for the borrowers to be as prepared as you can. I will add something to that, which we've discussed before, but it's important for anybody that's new. You can fill out your notarial certificates as well to the best of your ability. You got to make sure that the names are correct, but you can put down the date. You can put down a lot of the information that goes into your notarial certificates, but you must never, never sign it or stamp it unless you're before the borrower. And I don't think that varies from state to state. And Laura, you can confirm that, but that's national.
Yeah, Laura, what do you think?
Is that right?
Well, so let me hit it from I think a national point, and then I'll mention California because, we're just a different country. So every state has different requirements regarding journal usage. Of course, some don't require it, some recommend it. But if you're a signing agent, one of the things that you agree to do is maintain some type of record for all of these loan signings going on. And so if you're in a state that does not really have any requirements, there are so many shortcuts you can take to make it easy for you to maintain the journal as you go through the appointment, because there's not a lot that you have to do. You get the big one line, you get your signature. Some states don't even allow you to write numbers off of an ID. So you do what your state allows you to do, and you can probably move through it pretty quickly. Me personally, I am in California. One is we are not allowed to pre-fill out our journals ahead of time. Secretary of State put that out in 2018. So yes, that was one of the things we said, well, why don't you just put things you do know, and that would give you a head start. And then what happened is, I think through the audits, there were too many strikeouts of lots of different signings, and it looked like our journals were more of a planner than the actual execution of documents. And so they came out and put out a statement about that. The way I do it is I do tracking. I do one line, so I have everything I need that can be repeated later. And then as I move through the signing, I do what I call tracking, which means the only things I record as I go would be either an A or a J for the type of internal act. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, sorry. You're get that muted there. Sorry.
Okay, so the A or the J for the type, the time, the first name of the signer, and the name of the document. And I don't write anything else. That's about as much as I can handle between documents. When they stop to read a document, they have to answer the phone, they have something that's caused them to slow down, I go back and backfill anything I left undone. And I save the signatures and the thumbprints for the end. And I also, as I'm going through the assignment, I look for the statement of information, I look for surveys, I look for anything that takes them a while to fill out, and I pull it aside. And then I use that to give them something to do while I'm finishing up anything I have left undone. Also, I use that for when I'm QAing documents and I need them occupied. I might have them signing and thumbprinting while I'm QAing. I give them the instruction. So my goal is I'm working, they're working, everybody's working at the same time. So there's not a bunch of silent time while they're waiting for me to do something, or I'm waiting for them to do something. And by the time I get to the end of my assignment, everything seems to sync up pretty well.
I like that. And I'm right in alignment with actually both of you. I'm big into smooth and efficient. And when I think about the times during a signing that are the most uncomfortable, it's just when you're doing something and the signers are not. So I do the same thing. If there's an HOA document or some sort of certification or ID verification that requires a lot of information from the borrower, that's when I will give them those documents when I have something that's a little more time consuming on my end. As far as other states, aside from California and those that require that you do a line item for every document that you notarize, like in Arizona, we don't have to do that. So I start off every signing with the journal entry. The reason that I do that is I like to get a feel for what the signature of the borrower looks like. So I can compare it right there in the journal versus what it is on the ID versus how the lender wants them to sign their name. So we can have that conversation right there in the very beginning. It just kind of is kind of the perfect segue for that.
I want to interject something very quickly, and then we've talked about it before, just in case we have some people here who are in a state that does not require a journal.
Mm-hmm.
You should use one anyway. We've talked about it. This is your memory if you ever get called to court. It's really imperative. I really tell my students, it doesn't matter whether your state requires it or not. You need to keep a journal always, because you're not going to remember what happened 6 months from now, much less 3 years from now. If you wind up in court, you've got to keep a really good, concise journal. It's imperative.
Totally agree with you. And Laura, you just mentioned something that I found really that kind of shifted the concept a little bit. Is you said that when we become a loan signing agent, we agree to have some sort of record keeping or journal in place. That's part of the code of conduct, correct?
That's correct. So definitely when you certify through the NNA and you agree to the code of conduct, one of the things you're agreeing to is that you would maintain a journal. Now, within your state requirements. So certainly you're not expected to record things that are not appropriate for your state.
Well, that brings up a really good point that goes to integrity. Integrity is just one of those words that says that you will do what you said you would do. And if you agree to become a notary public in the first place, you agree to abide by the state laws that govern that. And if you agree to become a signing agent and honor the certification through the NNA, then you're agreeing to keep the journal. So really, even on a bigger scale, keeping a journal is not just a personal choice. Even if you're in a state, it keeps you in integrity if you've agreed to be a loan signing agent. That's a great perspective, and I'm glad you said it the way that you did. Next question. All right, this was kind of a long one, so I went ahead and included everything to give kind of a framework here. It says, who sets the signing appointments, and why are they set before documents are ready? I had 2 last week that since documents were not ready, both different signers did not know any of the terms of the loan. And when I arrived with the CDs that they saw for the first time, they were not happy and did not sign. I still printed the documents, traveled to their location, and spent time with them while they reviewed, discussed, and made calls to their loan officer. But I'm only getting half the pay for both signings. It seems to me that notaries should receive full pay, even if the signing company receives half their pay because it wasn't organized and setting the signing appointment or not communicating the loan terms, etc., was a cluster. So I'm sure we have some really good opinions on this. Carol, do you want to address this one?
Yeah, this infuriates me, especially since SPW, CFPB, the requirements of the new closing disclosure be presented to the borrower 72 hours prior to documents. And this was something I talked about before, where I gave out this whistleblowers number, because I think that these lenders should be reported. They are required to provide the borrowers that document 72 hours in advance. And I hear all the time from my students, my graduates that go to signings, that they'll go to a signing and the people say this is the first time that they've ever seen it. Now, every once in a while I say, yeah, I got it in the mail, but I didn't look at it. But really, there are a number of people who are getting these, are not getting these in advance of the signings. And the first time that they're looking at them is when the people are there. First of all, it's terribly unfair to the notary signing agent and to the borrowers. They need to be prepared to sign those documents, the borrowers. They need to have the information that's required of them to to confidently sign the documents. And for notary signing agents to waste their time and go to people and spend their time driving and everything else, and then to be paid half, spend the time with people, you've done your diligent duty as far as I'm concerned. And to take away that pay because the lender screwed up or somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do, I think it's worth fighting for your fee. I wouldn't just sit back and just take it myself. And I mentioned before, I have the CFPB whistleblowers line. If you keep running into this, or you see this is happening with one particular lender or something, we need to let them know that this is happening, that these people are not following the law. So
Excellent.
that's a strong opinion, but it's mine.
Very strong, very strong. And, I totally agree with you. Number one, the reality is you should always be paid your fee. And I've never had, working escrow direct, guys, I've never had an escrow officer try to pay me half a fee because I showed up to do my job. We get paid the full rate. We did our job, our role. Escrow officers that appreciate you and are in the relationship, they value your time as well. Somebody's paying us, whether it comes from their overflow or their operating fund, or they're going to charge the lender. We get paid. It's some of the signing companies, I don't know if it's part of their contract where they only get paid half, or they're getting paid full and they're only paying you half. I don't know what the story is. It probably changes from signing company to signing company, but you absolutely have done what you were committed to doing, so you deserve your full pay 100%. Whether or not that happens, of course, is really going to be up to the relationship you have with that signing company. Now, I also have a policy with my escrow officers, and luckily they're 100% behind it, but we do not schedule appointments before they receive documents. To that same point, there's supposed to be a checks and balances in here. A closing agent who's ultimately responsible for the correct closing of a transaction has to make sure that the closing disclosure was signed by the borrower 3 days prior. Like my escrow officer clients will not proceed, or they've booked and then they've seen the documentation from the lender where the dates didn't match on the closing disclosure, so they had to reschedule me because they were not in compliance with those new laws. So a lot of times what you run into is the borrowers just click sign. They've been signing thousands of papers through this process, so they're not recognizing that they've already seen and signed the closing disclosure. They don't realize the importance of it. So that is actually a real factor in there. But I'm sure there are, like Carol has that hotline. They have that hotline to report lenders that abuse this, because lenders abuse this. So I totally agree that it's our responsibility to report that up the chain. Now, Laura, what do you think on this one?
Okay, I was trying to use the space bar, but it wasn't working.
Oh.
So my experience since the introduction of the CD is 98% of the time, they have it, they've seen it, or they've acknowledged they got it, whether or not they looked at it closely. I'm not having that issue. And I do still work for some signing companies as well as the title companies. And I'm personally not experiencing that. I saw a big change from how it was before. So I can't speak to how that's happening, other than I do want to say is that the CD is not required for every kind of loan. There are several loans out there, types, that are not required to have that CD. They still rely on the old HUD, and they don't have that 72-hour rule.
Right. Yeah, that's an important distinction too. All right, excellent. Next question. When I create my invoice and I break down my travel and notarial acts, a lot of times I seem to take a loss if I account for a $10 per stamp. She's in Florida. For example, I did a loan today that required 15 stamps, which should be at least $150. However, when I received the offer, it was for $100. And at that time, I had no way of knowing the number of pages or the number of stamps required. Why isn't there a law that requires title and signing companies to pay at least per stamp? Did it used to be that way only when payments were higher before this business started booming, or is this only a consideration in general notary work? Laura, do you mind taking this one?
Yeah, I'd love to actually, because this comes up all the time. And the first thing I want to clear up is the misconception that we must be paid at minimum, whatever the maximum level is in our state. That is an up to number. That is not the minimum I should be paid per stamp. That's the first thing. If anybody thinks that, that's not what the law is saying. The second thing is, the idea for that really was more of the one-off 2 or 3 for individual signers. It really wasn't set up with the idea of paying a notary per stamp during a signing. During a signing, we are orchestrating the appointment. We have many different responsibilities, and now we're being hired to wear another hat, and we're really looking at our time investment in that appointment. And notarization is one of the many things we do within that appointment. And now it doesn't become how many notarizations do I perform? It's how much time did I have to invest between coordinating the appointment and printing the documents and traveling to the appointment and the table time and any follow-up time. What is that value? And that's how we should, I believe, that's how we should look at our pricing, isn't by the stamp, but what our time investment is in the entire process and what we need to get back in order to offset, one, the cost of the tools to provide the notarization, the marketing to get the jobs, the other hard costs such as your toner, paper, and car, and then your time value. And so whether or not 100 was a right amount, I don't know, I can't say for this particular instance, but what I can say is that I don't know, we don't know up front how many notarizations are going to be in any particular package. I know it can be somewhere between 6 and 10 or 12, anywhere in there. I know about how long it takes me to print documents, to travel to the territory that I've already pre-decided I'll do. And I also know what it costs to operate my car. And I know about how long I have to sit at the table. So I know when I say I'll do it for this amount of money, I know I can make money doing that. And I can't do it on worrying about how many stamps or notarizations I perform in that appointment.
And you know, if you're in a state where they're only allowed to charge $2, you have to think
in that case, you know what? You're not paying for the stamp. Otherwise, you're I'm $15. So you know what? It would be like $300. Yeah, that's just unreasonable.
No, but being in a state where they only get $2 per stamp.
Yeah, this works out in your favor.
Yeah, exactly. It's even better.
Yeah, I think that's good. Anything else to add to that, Carol?
No, I was just thinking, it works 2 ways. You may not get that full $150, if you're getting $10, a stamp, but if you're getting $2 a stamp, you're very happy to get paid $100 to do signing. Well,
I will also want to say, a $100 offer from a signing company is a very decent offer these days. I love that it's in alignment with the industry standard down there too. So that's definitely at least reasonable from the outside looking in. We've got a hand up. I'm going to see if there's anybody who's on the call today that would like to ask any questions. Let's start with Samara Oliver Talbot.
Good morning, everyone from Louisville, Kentucky. How are you?
Doing good, Samara. How are you? How can
I'm
we help?
doing well. I'm calling because my question is about kind of some of the things that you've been talking about as far as fees. In Kentucky, we don't have to have a journal. We don't have to be certified. We don't have to do any of those things that my fellow notaries have to do, but it reflects in the rates that the signing company want to pay us here. And so I was wondering if you had any ideas. I'm NNA certified. I've done more than 1,500 signings of all different kinds. How can I get them to pay us more here in Kentucky?
Great question. Carol, what do you think?
Oh, don't do that to me. I'm one of those that everybody would say, no, you can't do that. Unite. That's a really hard one because there are states that are like that and they really don't value the job of the notary signing agent. It's really hard. I just don't even know what to say. I do know that I tell my graduates that it's very, very important what companies they sign up for. As everybody knows, we have a list, great companies, 4 and 5-star rated. They really do pay well, and even if you get just a few signings from good companies, I would prefer to see them really working as much as they can direct, which they can learn from you, certainly, Bill, and then just trying to work with better companies and not accepting these offers from companies that are not willing to pay. And I don't know what we're talking about. How much are we talking about for an average signing?
A refi, they want to do 60, 75 is a good offer, but I can't seem to get the notaries here to get better educated so that we can kind of demand a little more. But $100 right now is kind of like a golden egg here in Kentucky, even for a purchase.
Have you started working with your Secretary of State's office to see what can happen? In fact, Bill's in Arizona, and I was working very hard with a group of people several years ago trying to raise our fees. I think that we were getting $2 a notary, and now what are you getting now, Bill? We were
$10.
See, we were trying very hard for 10. And
we're getting 10 here in Kentucky, but where I learned, I didn't know you didn't have to be certified when I started. I'm kind of almost a California notary as far as my credentials and all of the things that I do. But my fellow loan signing agents here, they don't want to pay the extra expense, do the extra continuing education. They don't want to do anything. So I'm really kind of in a pickle on what I can do to unite us and make things a little better.
The only thing I would say, if you can do some networking, I'm not talking about price fixing, please don't come after me. You want to maybe discuss the fact that you can get paid more if you're certified. I mean, there's a lot of places in this country that will not hire you unless you're certified. And I'm very grateful that our certification is accepted now because it's taken me 10 years to get there. But, maybe start within. Network, talk to fellow signing agents, see if anybody feels the way you do. I think that you have to, when changes are to be made, I think you have to do them internally, and I think you have to do it through your state government, which is your Secretary of State's office. Maybe you could be the leader.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Samara, are you working mainly with signing companies, or have you branched out and started doing some escrow or closing agent direct?
Well, I'm kind of in that middle zone now. That's why I'm taking your Sign and Thrive. It's kind of hard to get direct escrow here. It's kind of an old boys grandfathered in kind of thing, and there's not a lot of wiggle room to get in that right now. So if you're not already got to connect, now the notaries that are doing the direct, they'll hire you and take a cut of the money, but they're not letting you into those. And the drop-bys and all that doesn't seem to work on our escrow officers here. They're already hip to it. They're looking for you to come, and they're shutting you down as soon as you get there.
Yeah, that's an awesome challenge to take on. I would encourage you, let's do a one-on-one coaching call on this too. But there are communities where that's really difficult to get into, and it just forces us to be a lot more creative. But if we really wanted to do like the quickest solve on getting paid more, it's cutting out the middleman. So it's cutting out the signing companies. They serve a great purpose. They've got great volume. But if you want to get to the next level, we've got to go escrow direct, and that way you get all of the signing fee. That's the fastest way to earn yourself some more money and generate more revenue. And then
what about? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What about general notary work? Are you doing general notary work? Because that can be quite lucrative if you do it right. And Laura is the one to go to for that, for sure. And also, there's so many other things that you can do. My belief is now, and I've been in this business for most of my life, it seems. And what we've been emphasizing the last few years is something that never occurred to me 7 or 8 years ago. And that's that you're building not just a signing business, you're building an entrepreneurial business that for most of you out there, you want that to sustain you through your senior years, which is very possible, to work it whatever way you want to. There are so many things that you can do with your notary, with and without, but there's so many avenues that you have to add things to your, your businesses and to make more money. So instead of just concentrating on that one thing, the signing agent stuff, look into all of the other things that you're capable of doing and legally able to do.
Thank you. And right now I do the inspections, I do I-9s. Just being able to work with you guys, especially out there on the West Coast, has helped me a lot because none of the other notaries are in these groups. So I've been able to get that advantage. But yeah, I'm doing a little bit of everything right now.
Awesome. I love to hear that because there's so much opportunity in this business. There's so much that you can do and diversify with. Laura, did you have anything you wanted to add on to Samira's question?
Good luck.
All right, good luck.
You know what? You're in a tough spot, and I really feel for you. And I agree, Bill. If you're planning to talk with her one-on-one, you're going to need to stand out and do your own thing, and you can't wait for your fellow notaries to get on board. They may follow your example, but you will need to be the example out there because change is just not going to happen unless you say it's not acceptable the way it is.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, guys, that brings us up to the half hour now. So we have a couple more questions, but maybe we'll be able to sprinkle them in or not. We want to really share the importance of and concept of generating and managing your energy throughout the day. When we are out on the road, sometimes 12 to 14 hours a day, especially at the end of the month, that can really take its toll on us, and we start to question our life decisions and why we're here. And we have family on top of that and other relationships that we have to manage. So how can we manage all of that and still enjoy life? So that's what Laura, Carol, and I want to share with you. And Carol, Laura, this was a concept that you had brought to both Carol and I. So I kind of want to start with you, if that's okay with you.
That's perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, all right.
What I found interesting is I'm, of course, constantly looking for articles, webinars, mentors, coaches that offer something that resonates with me in particular. They may be very successful in all those areas, but unless it resonates with me, I'm probably not going to follow too far. This article that I saw was talking about energy management versus time management. And, we have talked about this before, about the time management and, how do I get everything done? How do I give 100% to everything when I have long days? How do I give the same amount, my best, to every appointment, to everything I'm doing? And so when I read this article, what I got from it was, that is, if you have a 14-hour day, it's really difficult. You could schedule everything back to back to back to back, but that doesn't mean you're going to be able to be the same person and give the same energy and that 100% to everything. And we, as humans, we have some natural ebb and flow to our own energies. And so if we look at what we're asking of ourselves and when possible, align what that energy level needs to be to accomplish that goal or task, then we're more likely to successfully take on those challenges. So for instance, and when I started looking at my days, I see that I naturally do gravitate in that direction. But now that I've made it something that's not subliminal, I'm actively looking to make it work that way. I'm finding more ways to make this work. So I take activities or tasks that I have and I rate them in activity level. What does it take from me in terms of my energy to make that happen? So the amount of energy it takes for me to have a one-sided conversation, meaning I'm listening to a webinar, I'm reading an article, I'm taking notes, I'm checking my calendar, maybe I'm doing bookkeeping, maybe I'm doing other activities in my home office that does not require a lot of outpouring of energy to make that happen. It just takes my ability, my skill to make it happen. Then I align that with when does that work for me best? So for instance, a lot of times I'm up early in the morning, much earlier than I need to be when I'm not teaching. And so I get up and I start reading articles and I start listening to webinars and I check emails and I do things that are that don't require that high energy output. I don't make signing appointments for 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning because that's not a good time. I can do it. It's not that I can't. I just choose to do other things that don't take it out of me first thing in the morning. So that for me, my energy builds as the day goes. So I recharge my batteries throughout the morning so that as my day is moving and I'm starting to meet with people, either by video or in person, because it's a loan signing or some other appointment, I'm at my best when I'm with other people. I also see that my own energy starts to really drop around that 3 to 5 o'clock hour, right in there. I just have a dip, and it's probably not the best time for me to have, one-on-one coaching appointments or loan signing appointments where I need to give 100% of myself in that time frame. I'm not saying I don't ever not take an appointment at that time. I just noticed that it's much better for me to do other things at that time and then take the appointments like after dinner. I'm great until about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then you know what? Not good for me to be doing appointments later in the evening because I get tired, my brain gets tired, and I am more likely to make mistakes. So I just look for the natural places where I can be lower key, lower energy, and get things done I'm going to need to get done anyways, right? And then save my energy for those times when I need to be involved with other people, because interacting with somebody else is a very high energy activity. And we will know that because when we go to somebody's home, we need to be on when we're there. We can't just show up and it's okay, let's just sign here. We need to be on, we're directing them, we're taking firm but gentle control of that appointment. And so you need to be watching yourself, them, because they don't always follow your instructions. You've got a million things going on in that appointment that you're orchestrating. So you need all of you, your mental capacity, your physical strength and stamina, your voice, your body language. All of that is going to speak to that person in that appointment and can make the difference. So I want to make sure that when I'm taking these appointments, I can give my all to those appointments. And when I don't have it to give, I can be doing other things. It doesn't mean I need to roll up into a ball and do nothing. It just means I choose other activities that don't require that level of energy for me. And that's what allows me to have a longer day. And that allows me to do longer weeks. And I love that I naturally tended to go with that already. I just didn't realize it. And after reading that article, which I did post on the S.A.V.E.R.S Facebook page, I also posted it on Symposium, and I posted it, I believe, on my own. So if you want to see that article about energy management versus time management, please read it. I found it really helpful for me, and I will now take proactive steps to better align what I need to do when. That's it.
Awesome. Great input there, Laura. Thank you for sharing your strategies there. Carol, you want me to go next? What's that?
Oh, you're muted, Carol.
Myself. Go ahead.
Unmute.
All right. So I've got a little presentation. So I tried to put it all into a slideshow that would help guide this, because when I started thinking about what it is that I do to manage my energy, Even back, when I was just 100% loan signing, I didn't have a course. I didn't have, webinars and stuff to do. I was real committed. Some would say a little on the crazy side on how the number of assignments that I took and how I structured the day and the things that I did to learn how to sustain that level of energy. And so there was a lot of information. So I put it into a little slideshow for you. I'll go through it relatively quickly. And if you ever want to dive deeper on any of this, I love talking about it. You can respond to any of my emails. I read all of those. And I can elaborate even more on anything that you find interesting. So I'm gonna get people muted here. We got some noises. Let me get this shared real quick. So we're talking about energy today. And how we can manage it. I'm just going to speak from my own experience here. And then if you have any questions, I can't see the chat window anymore. So feel free to unmute and jump in, or Laura and Carol, if I need to slow down, please don't hesitate to let me know. So the first thing, it's kind of a little bit on the woo-woo side, but I got really clear, is you have to start with why. You have to know why you're working so hard, because these days are long. Even though I have a smile on my face most of the time and I love what I do, it's still a really long day, 14, 15, 16 hours at the end of the month. When things don't go wrong, having to fix documents, I have to have a really clear understanding of why I'm working so hard. Along these lines are kind of what Carol brought up in the very beginning, is we don't live so we can work. We're working so we can live. So you've got to understand that component of the why as well, is it's not all business. It's easy to fall into the trap of working 7 days a week, but that's not why we're doing this. So we have to kind of keep ourselves in check on that, and clarity of your why is going to really help with that. Also, unplug. When you do take time away from your business, take time away from your business. This is a lesson I have to continually teach myself, because again, I love what I do. I love being connected to it, but no matter what you're plugged into, it drains some of the energy out of you. So when you unplug. And I do this, I practice this at night as well. So after a certain time period, and I keep trying to edge it back a little bit. It used to be 9 p.m. Now it's 8 p.m. I'm trying to get to 6 p.m. where I don't have to take calls. I don't have to be attached to the computer at all. I can completely disconnect from technology. And I know you hear this everywhere. The reason that you hear about sleep everywhere is that it's extremely important. So it can vary. There's lots of science now. People are studying this. We're getting lots of data. Ariana Huffington wrote a really great book on the topic. That's a great starter point for you if you want to jump in there. It's backed by science and data as well. But you're going to need somewhere between 6 and 8, sometimes 9 hours of sleep to keep yourself maximized. That's when your body does your healing. So look into that and make sure you're taking care of yourself that way. And then wake up. Wake up fresh and ready to go. There are some strategies for this. Most of us hit the snooze button a minimum of 5 to 7 times. That's like torturing yourself 5 to 7 times every morning. You don't want to get out of bed, so you repeat it and you relive it like Groundhog's Day 5 to 7 times every morning. If you're going to wake up, wake up. And then enjoy what you're going to do. If you don't enjoy this business, if you don't enjoy the job you're in, if you don't enjoy anything about what's going on, find a way to either find joy in it, so you enjoy it, or change the situation. I'm a huge advocate of the miracle morning. So this S.A.V.E.R.S is an acronym for what you do in the morning, because one of the struggles that I had was, sure, what if I do wake up early? What if I do wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning? What the heck am I going to do that early in the morning? This book, Miracle Morning, and the S.A.V.E.R.S kind of answered that question for me. It's silence and meditation, affirmations, where you just affirm what it is that you want in life, visualize what you want, do a little exercise, read something inspiring, and then write or journal or decompress about it. Next up, hydrate. A lot of the energy lulls that you're experiencing throughout the day is because you are dehydrated. The Americans are among some of the most dehydrated population in the world. Drink more water and you'll get more energy. This one's huge, guys. GIGO. I just did that for garbage in, garbage out. What you consume is what you are going to put out. So if you want more energy, if you want a better attitude, if you want to feel good about life or better relationships, you've got to better manage what you are putting into your body. And I'm not talking about just nutrition, because nutrition obviously is extremely important. It's not something that I paid attention to for the grand majority of my life. I'm just at a point now where I feel just about every bite of food I eat now. So if I eat something sweet, my body feels completely different. If I eat something like chicken fried steak, I feel it a lot differently. So I'm paying a lot more attention to it. And I wish I would have started earlier. But this is more about food and nutrition. This is about your entertainment choices. What are you watching? How much of it are you watching throughout the day? Are you glued to YouTube? Is it just music videos? Is it stuff that takes energy away rather than put energy in? Those things matter. And it's also what most people have a struggle the most with, is it's the people in our lives. Are you surrounded by people that suck the energy out of you, or do they replenish your cup? Those are, if it's sucking the energy out, if you've got a bunch of energy vampires in your life, you're going to have to start making some decisions. That's the reality for success. You've got to either find a way to block it out or cut them off, or replace them with people that fire you up and believe in you. Another huge one. This was really difficult for me, guys. I'm a high productive guy. I thought that multitasking and, running 5 or 6 different businesses in complete different industries was a realistic thing to do. But there's now science to prove that multitasking actually diminishes productivity. So along the lines of multitasking is time blocking. So if you are going to do something, do it for that period of time, and don't try to be checking email, drafting or researching an escrow client, drafting an email, sorting documents. All of that we think we're being real productive on actually is cutting it short for us. Then outsource. Outsourcing my life was, again, pretty hard for me to do. It's difficult for me to hire other people to do things. I'm kind of a control freak. Plus, I've got a lot of ideas in my head. It's really hard to get it out. But outsourcing my life, just the small things like the cooking, the cleaning, and the laundry in my life has freed me up to pay attention to the things that matter in my life, the things that I am passionate about. So now I have less time where, on the weekends where I have to clean my house or do my laundry or create marketing pieces that I don't enjoy creating. So keep that in mind. And then the 50-minute rule. When we're sitting down and we are at a computer or maybe even driving a car. I've started doing this on those long drives to California. I actually pull over every hour or so and I take a little walk or I explore something to break up the monotony of the drive. I do this too whenever I'm sitting down at the computer and I'm doing some writing or I'm doing a webinar. I'll put the camera on mute. I'll get up and I'll move around a little bit. Do something to kind of break up the energy. Sitting in front of a device or sitting in front of anything for too long is going to suck the energy out rather than replenish it. Then remind yourself of your greatness. Remind yourself of your why. Remind yourself why you do this business throughout the day. Set a timer on your phone that just says, this is what you're working for and towards. It will hit you right at the right time. Randomize it a little bit. Change the times up. When you need it most, you're going to get that reminder of why you're working so hard and how great you are. This breathing exercise has actually been a game changer for me in my business, especially on those days when I'm doing 12 signings. When I'm doing that many signings, it's exhausting, like Laura was talking about. It drains the energy from your brain, and you can be brain dead by the end. But you still have to find the energy to be present at these signings so you don't have errors and that you can still connect with the borrowers, have some fun, and enhance their experience too. Every time I get in the car after a signing, I do 10 deep breaths. Deep breath in, deep breath out. And I think about I kind of decompress and let that go. I do the same thing right before a signing. And then I think of the words of intention that I want to kind of portray to that signing client. And anytime that you have a high stress situation, if you're driving in traffic, if you breathe, even if it's just 3 breaths, 10 was overwhelming for me when I first started. Just start with 3, start with 1. Take a deep breath and exhale. Make an adventure out of your day. Most of us live in some part of the country where other people travel to check it out, explore as tourists. Be a tourist in your own community. If you're doing 12 signings, you're probably not going to have a whole lot of time to be doing little side adventures, but there are times when you have 1 or 2 and it's spread out and you're not sure what you're going to do. Well, rather than sit at the Starbucks and get on YouTube, unless it's our videos, get in and explore the area. We have Indian ruins here in Arizona, so sometimes I'll swing by there. Sometimes I'll take a hike. I've started driving with hiking shoes in my truck, so I can take a little nature hike if I want to do that. There's all kinds of ways to do it. Swing by a mall. Go down a street you've never gone on. You can scale this down to whatever you can handle, but you want to make life an adventure again. Another one that's powerful, it also drives me crazy when I hear it. It is what it is. This has helped me just chill out about how the things that are outside of my control, like traffic, construction, there's accidents on the road, there's customers that don't respond to anything, there are documents that are late, there are documents that are wrong, there's all of these things that are outside of my control. And when I just sit back and relax and I just say, it is what it is, there's nothing that I can do. I can get as angry as I want. I can get as frustrated as I want. It's not going to do any good. It's not going to change the situation. So that shifts my mindset. It gives me a lot more peace of mind in my stomach. So I'm not completely stressed out. And then I can communicate a lot more clearly. People are so cool in this business. If you're running late, communicate. If things aren't what they should be, we can communicate that. People are generally going to understand. There's going to be jerks out there, but again, it is what it is. I can't control them. I can only control my reaction to it. Which brings us to the evening routine. After all of that long day, doing something to completely unwind. I do a forgiveness routine, a little mantra that just kind of forgives myself and as well as anybody that may have crossed some boundaries with me throughout the day. I don't want to take that to bed with me. So I do a little routine for that, flush it away, and then, of course, unplug. And then every day we repeat. And that is how, part of the reason I maintain my energy throughout the day. Any questions on that?
Bill, I just want to say that's great. If anybody got those written down, because you kind of went through them quickly, those are all fabulous ways to help break up the day. And the 2 things that one you said and one I thought of is the intention. When I start my day in the morning, I want to put out to the universe what I want today, because amazingly, the universe seems to help me. And when I just put it out there, that today I have whatever it is in front of me, here are my challenges, and I want to be successful at those, I find that the universe supports me more times than not. And then the other thing is you talked about communicate. And that is something, of course, we're probably doing all day long. But I want to take that a step further, which is connect. We might communicate all day long, but we tend to work on our own. Most of us are one-person businesses, and we're out taking care of business, but we don't come back to an office with a bunch of other people we can download with and connect with. And so there needs to be some intention to make sure you make a connection in the day. And that's really helpful to me, is to intend to reach out and actually connect with somebody, not just communicate. This is done, I'm on my way, those kinds of things.
That's a great point. Great point. I love that we communicate, but we don't connect. That's huge.
Hi,
Carol.
Bill?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a question there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a quick question, Bill. You said you multitasking and you had like 6 different businesses. But within our business, we have multiple streams, which sometimes seems like it can go separate, like it's business in its own, and that seems to take a lot of energy. So can you like elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Most of the streams of revenue that I advocate for and that we talk about are pretty much what I call synchronistic with this business. So is there a little bit of energy distraction? Yes, there's going to be, for sure. I think our job is to minimize that and focus on almost kind of exactly what Laura said, is the connection and the relationship part. When we have the connection, the relationship foundation, adding additional services or their lines of revenue or streams of revenue for us, but they're just services for the people we already have a relationship with. And if we were going to categorize, like Laura says, she prioritizes or assigns energy values to activities, relationship building takes a lot of energy. It is the hard work. But once you get that, and once you set up and really, hopefully an automated and authentic, you can do both, way of staying connected, then the rest kind of falls into place. There will be times though, when it doesn't feel that way, especially in the beginning of anything. You're gonna have to put a little more energy into everything in the beginning. And when you get in the rhythm, those synchronistic businesses will jive a lot better. A lot of it is just the timing of everything. So the starting your notary sign, if you're just starting out as a loan signing agent, I do not recommend you add any more business lines to that. It's going to take some energy. You got to learn, you got to hone your craft. There is a way to do this and be mediocre, absolutely, but there's a way to do this and be extraordinary too. And we want you to be the extraordinary ones. We want you the ones that rise to the top, get to that level, then start adding things on. It's like shifting gears at the right. I should never use a car analogy because I have no idea what I'm talking about. But you shift gears at the right time rather than too soon. Does that help, Jason?
Yes, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, you bet. Carol, can you hear me?
I guess it helped if I unmute.
There you are. Hi. Can you
Hi
share
there.
a little bit?
Well, I am not as nearly as prolific or prepared as you two are. Part of it is my age. I told my husband I have the faintest idea what I'm going to say this morning. He says, just wing it. And so that's what I'm going to do. I've only got a minute left, I think, so that might save me. But no, the thing is, look, I'm old enough to be your grandmother, just about, okay? And so I started off in life young, raising 3 kids. You had to become an organizer. You had to keeping a home, keeping children, doing all of the things and all the activities. I was home with them for years, got it back into escrow. Being an escrow officer, being an escrow manager taught me enormous things. When I was running a company where I had employees, I had officers, I had people in the office that had to take care of one of the things several things, and I'm going to pass this on because this is good for signing agents too. Organization. I have a hard time relating with energy, but when I think about it, it has a lot to do with energy. Organizing what you're doing, especially as a signing agent. Never putting 2 files on your desk at the same time. When you're dealing with a file, you deal with one file, make sure that everything's correct, everything is contained so that you don't have any kind of an overflow of documents, that kind of thing. I mean, it sounds small, but it's really important, that kind of organization. I did that as an escrow officer. I did it as a manager. Never had more than 1 file on my desk. Even if I had 40 files I had to work on. If I was working with one employee, I was working with that employee. If I had meetings, and it was with everybody. One of the things that I learned, because that was a very, very stressful job, starting many times at 5 o'clock in the morning and going home at 7 o'clock at night. And one of the things that I used to do in the middle of the day was to announce to everybody that I was going to be in conference. And they knew exactly what conference was. Conference was sitting in my big chair, turning it to the wall and sleeping for 15, 20 minutes.
Nice.
Power naps are amazing. Nowadays, now that I'm running Notary to Pro, and it's gone so much farther than I ever thought it would, I have learned some tricks about managing my energy, which is diminished. At my age, you just don't have the same kind of energy that you did when you were 40 or 50 or even 60. So I oftentimes find myself going to bed fairly early, and then I'll get up in the middle of the night, and I always have stuff that I can work on. Usually it's either creative, because I have 100% of my brain and my creative abilities are available to me in the middle of the night. It's grading tests. It's doing things that require not a lot of thought, but enough where I'm not going to make a mistake. I like to save my energy times for my mentoring times. This is when I really need to be on. I restrict the times. I take quick questions all the time, constantly. Phone ringing, what do you do? I'm in a signing, blah, blah, blah. But I do have mentoring appointments where they can set it up in 15, 30-minute increments. I save those times that I have those types of appointments where I'm not doing anything else. That is what I'm devoted to. That's where I can apply my abilities and give them everything that I have. So and multitasking, oh boy, I learned a long time ago. No bueno, not for Carol. I'm no good at it. I'm just not. It draws my attention from one to the other, and I will fail on something if I try to multitask. But other than that, I take my little power naps still, and there are my off times when you said sometimes you just watch television. I do that a lot. Like I'll go out and I'll go into the other room and I'll watch television. But the funny thing is my brain never stops. And I can walk away from that television and have not a faintest idea of what I've just seen. It's just the way. So you have to find your own way. I think getting a recipe for doing it, I think it's definitely worth thought. It's not something we thought about when I was growing up as a mature adult. It wasn't something we thought about. We just did what we had to do. And you just maintained and you did the best you could. But there are things that you can do that will help you, I think, to maintain that energy.
Absolutely. And I think you really kind of nailed it. It's a very personal decision. We can all share our own strategies. There's going to be millions of other ways to do it. You just kind of have to find what's right for you. But the key is to get curious about what it is. I think so much of us, we just feel the way we feel and we just assume that that's how we're supposed to feel. But when you start really kind of digging into it, there's ways that you can actually feel better, both mentally and physically. And it's worth checking into. Little shifts can make a huge difference, especially when you tie in time. Carol, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Laura, I know I had to jump off of here. She's on the hotline today. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in again on a Tuesday morning, growing yourself and your business. We love doing this with you. Please respond to any of my emails or email me at orders@notarycoach.com with any of your questions that you'd like us to talk about. Now, I know I promised Mohammed that we would revisit the topic of e-notary. We have done that before, Mohammed, so they're on previous episodes, but I promise I will add that question to next week's TNT call, so we'll definitely hit it again. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.